Have you ever made an offer on a property? Well, I haven't yet. And this is where my dad's going to help us to learn how to. Because the first time is totally the scariest time. My dad, John Kefalianos, mortgage broker and developer, is going to walk us through the process of how to make an offer and sending it to an agent. My name's Nicola Kefalianos and this is my first home buyer mentor. So Dad, is there anything you want to set the scene with?
Thank you, Nicola. Well, we're going to go through a letter of offer, and what we're going to go through is why is this used now? What's the difference between a letter of offer and a contract? And also how to best complete the letter of offer form to increase your chances of having your offer accepted. So I want to use a RESA letter of offer form as an example. But these days, agents do online letter of offer forms. There's different letter of offer forms available in different states. So there's different variations of this form, but the concept is all the same though. So one thing I also want to make note is a letter of offer isn't legally binding. So this is simply your way of making an offer on that property to make the real estate agent aware.
And just showing your interest.
So just to let them know what your terms would be if you were to make or go to contract on this property. If your offer is then accepted, then you actually go to doing the contract. So this is all about the letter of offer. Mm-hmm. And taking the first step in making an offer on a property.
Okay. So do you want to walk us through writing a letter of offer?
Sure. So when filling in this form, these details are going to be used to go onto the contract. So it's very important, first of all, where you've got your details and your names that you've got to put there, you actually put your full name that's on your ID, because that name will then flow through to the contract, which will then flow through to the details of that title. So you're going to make sure the name that you're putting on this letter of offer is your full name. So your full name is Nicola Kefalianos.
For those of you listening on iTunes or Spotify, make sure you head to YouTube where you can actually see Dad going through the form.
You can also put anonymity. So what that means is, let's just say you're buying a property with a partner. You might just put your name there, anonymity, which means when you buy that property, when it comes time to settling, you can settle in two people's names. So put the primary contact person here on the letter of offer form for now. You can also put both names if you want to. But this does depend on what state you're in though. So just check what the regulations are in the state that you live in. So the next part of this form shows the address of the property. So again, put the full address of the property that you're intending to make an offer on. So the street number, street name, suburb, postcode, and state. The next part is the offer amount. So put the amount that you're prepared to make an offer on. Now, sometimes people like to put a low offer thinking, I want to try to get this property at a good deal, which is great. But at the same time, you don't want to make an offer that you don't think will be accepted. So try to put your best offer forward, which you'll be comfortable.
And make it reasonable.
Yeah, make it a reasonable offer that you're comfortable in going ahead with. So put your best offer forward there. What you offer really depends on the market that you're in. So if the market is hot and you go to an open inspection and there's 100 people at the open inspection, you don't want to lowball them because this offer is just going to get chucked out. You're not even going to get a call back. You want to put your best offer forward for your best chance to be accepted. So that's the offer amount. The next part is a deposit amount. So the deposit amount is what you're prepared to put down as a deposit on this property. Generally, that can be 10%. 10% is what agents do like to receive, but that also is a fair bit of money. In saying that, when you are buying a property, that money is going to be used to go buy that property anyway. So whether it's sitting in the real estate's trust account for 30 days or in your account for 30 days, it's not going to make much difference. So having a decent deposit amount on the contract will increase your chance. And my rule of thumb is probably minimum $20,000 to $25,000. It doesn't matter how much the property is, but aim for 5% of the property value. So if you can put your deposit at 5% of the property value, that shows that you're serious about that property.
So is this the same deposit I put down on my loan?
Yeah, good question, Nicola. So say you've sorted out your finance, you got your finance approval, and your finance broker tells you you need to put a deposit down of $80,000 to go towards the purchase of that property. So the deposit you're putting down in the house, let's say it's $40,000, comes out of the deposit that you would have had to contribute anyway to that purchase. So of your $80,000 that you were going to contribute, you're using $40,000 of that to put it towards a deposit on the property, which means at settlement, you then only have to put another $40,000. So it's the same deposit. You're not actually having to put a deposit on the house and then another $80,000 later on the
So it is the
property.
same?
So it's the same one, yes.
So how do I use it as the deposit on the loan if I've just given it to the agent as the deposit on the property?
Okay, so what happens is you put your deposit down on the property, and like we said, in this situation, let's just say you put a $40,000 deposit down on the property. Mm-hmm. Your finance broker has told you that you need to contribute $80,000 towards that purchase to be able to buy that property. Okay, so in total it's $80,000. You've contributed $40,000 deposit on the property, which sits in the real estate agent's trust account.
Yeah.
At settlement, your conveyancer or your solicitor will know that you've already paid that $40,000 deposit. The $40,000, because it's $80,000 in total that you need to contribute, you will then have to put another $40,000 in at settlement.
Okay.
with the rest of the money then coming from the bank, which is the loan. So basically you're paying that deposit to the real estate's trust account or the lawyer's trust account, and then you're putting the rest of the deposit at settlement.
Okay, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so what's next on the form?
So the next item on this letter of offer form is conditions. So
is that any conditions I want to propose to the vendor?
Correct. So you might have a condition subject to finance. Or
Subject to settlement or something.
Or you might have
like
a condition subject to settlement. You might be selling a property to be able to buy this house, so it's subject to settlement.
Okay.
There's some conditions. Or you might have a condition in there subject to building inspection. So that's something else that you can also put on there too. So subject to building inspection, subject to settlement of another property, subject to finance. So there's different things that you can put on there. So that's where you state what your situation is and what's going to be on your contract as well.
Okay.
So the next item is proposed settlement date. So when you're signing a contract, most vendors would like a settlement within 30 days, well, at 30 days. But you can propose a settlement 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, even 90 days, depending on your situation, if the vendor is willing to accept that as well. So in your discussion with a real estate agent, ask the question, what settlement terms does the vendor want? The vendor might actually want a longer settlement to give them time to either
Move
sell their
out
house or move out. Or the vendor might want a settlement on a certain date because they've bought another property. So ask that question to the real estate agent is, what does the vendor want for settlement? It will help you then, again, having your offer accepted because you're working with the vendor's requirements. If you're not strict on a certain settlement date, then try to be a little bit flexible with that to work with the vendor. One thing to be aware of there is you need to make sure that you're going to be able to meet settlement too. So make sure you speak to your finance broker, make sure everything's lined up, that's all sorted out, and that settlement date is going to be achievable.
Okay. So why is that actually so important?
So if you set a settlement date for 30 days, for example, and for some reason your finance
You start paying interest, don't you?
You don't pay interest until you settle the loan.
Oh.
So let's just say you've set a settlement date of 30 days and for some reason there's delays with your bank and with your finance broker not being able to arrange finance on time, or something's happened and you can't get finance on time, that vendor can charge you penalty interest for any delay in settlement past that 30 days.
Yeah.
So let's just say you might settle in 40 days. Though there's a calculation made that you're 10 days overdue for settlement, they can charge you a rate per day as interest on that purchase. So it could be a fee that is payable by you. So as a quick example, if you were to buy a house for say $500,000, the penalty interest rates will be around that $150 to $160 per day.
Okay. So you want to make sure you're settling on time.
Correct. Yep. The other issue with that as well is if you don't settle within 7 days, or again, depending on which state you're in, that vendor can cancel your contract. You haven't met the settlement term. So you could potentially lose that property as well.
But then they have to go to the effort of finding a new
Correct.
buyer.
Yep. So then you sign the letter of offer, you send it back to the real estate agent. The real estate agent will then probably call you. He'll try to negotiate with you more than likely if he's a good real estate agent. He'll say your offer is good. We've had a lot of interest. We'll give you one more chance to have a think about what you want to make an offer on, if you want to increase your offer. And then at that stage, you decide what you want to do, and then you'll go ahead. If you're successful, they'll then put all this information into a formal contract, which then they'll issue you a contract. Again, depending on the state you're in, they'll issue with Form 1s as well. You'll sign those contracts, sign the Form 1s. South Australia have 2 working days calling off, 2 full working days calling off after you've signed that contract, and then you move on to settlement.
So what if my offer doesn't get accepted, and how long does it take to know whether I've been accepted or not?
It all depends, but I'd probably try to set the conditions with the real estate agent from the start and ask him, when will you let me know about my offer being accepted? He might say 2 days, 4 days, a week. So ask the real estate agent, how long would it take you to get back to me with my offer? I wouldn't call him after your offer's made and wait for him to call you, because you don't want to be ringing him up every day, texting him every day, asking how your offer's going, because you want to sound, you're keen because you've made an offer, but you don't want to sound too keen because he'll then use that against you. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's about playing a bit of a game, but holding yourself back from really contacting them every day. But again, try to get those terms from him as to how long it's going to take. So if he says 4 days, on the 5th day, hi Scott, just touching base with you again. How's my letter of offer? I am looking at other properties at the moment. I need to know how I'm sitting. So that there shows the agent, shit, I better act fast with this buyer because I've got a buyer here on this property. But if I don't convert this into a contract,
then I might lose a buyer
and they'll go to someone else or go to buy another property. So by throwing that out there, it just
keeps them on their toes.
Makes that agent accountable to you and also to the vendor to make sure that he puts your offer into a contract, which might, again, not happen because he might have other people making offers higher than you, which again, he should come straight back to you and say, sorry, your offer has not been accepted. From here, you're either successful or not successful. So if you are successful, like we said before, they'll go to produce a formal contract, which then you'll sign with Form 1s, vendor then signs it, an offer is accepted, and you move on. From there, settlement process and finance process. So first thing you do is provide that to your conveyancer that you're going to be using, and also provide it to your finance broker or your bank. They will need to do valuations, arrange your finance to be formally approved. You'll then get loan documents and then arrange settlement. About 3 days before settlement, one thing you need to make sure of is that the deposit amount that you were going to contribute to that property is sitting in your nominated bank account where you've requested the bank to withdraw those funds from, because that settlement, you've still got to pay the rest of your deposit. There's two options there. So when you're signing loan documents, they give you the option to leave it in your bank account, and the bank will debit those funds at settlement as part of the proceeds to go towards settlement. Or the other option is you can transfer that money to your conveyancer, who will then handle that money to meet settlement as well. So there's two options there on what you can do.
So the key takeaways from this episode would be making sure that the form is filled out accordingly to increase your chances of having an offer accepted, and also don't act too keen, but show that you're still serious.
Yeah, correct. So like we said, don't ring the real estate agent every day, SMS him every day after you made the letter of offer. Give him some time to get back to you and make sure you're aware when he's going to get back to you.
I hope you guys have found this episode helpful and feel a little more comfortable now when it comes to making an offer on your first home. And remember, offer forms might look a little different depending on what state you're in, and sometimes you might actually skip the offer and go straight to contract. But at least now you know the steps to filling out an offer form when the time comes. If you've got any questions, comment below and drop us a follow on iTunes or Spotify so you don't miss an episode. My name's Nicola Kefalianos and we'll see you next week.